Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Yes, we discuss the introduction part little more in each and every text, because introduction is the basis of all texts. When we will start studying any text, it should not be our aim to finish, to complete the text. It should be our target how nicely we can digest the text, we can dwell upon the text. That should be our target. And you have noticed that in introduction portion, I complete the whole text. Then I start mantra or verses. So the aim is only one, that not only we will go through the text should go through us. Some students asked me to tell more about the things. I will try. The content of the Upanishads are the esoteric spiritual knowledge recorded for the purposes of reflection and contemplation. And therefore, the deeper a man dives into the significances of the passages during his meditation upon them, the greater shall he discover their hidden meaning. Mere superficial readers cannot be fully catered to with such philosophical literature, which are discourses upon pure truth, challenging the authority and authenticity of the fields of the mind and intellect. As such, many are the unprepared students who, having reached the portals of the Vedas, have made a very quick and sudden retreat from these texts in their inability to understand, appreciate, or follow the right import of the words of the great masters. We already discussed something, that the author of Upanishads are unknown. Is it then of divine origin? This is a view based on sheer faith, and it cannot come to command universal acceptance. We find Patanjali Maharshi in his Bhăşya pointing out how Panini has made the fine distinction between Tena Proktam, spoken by him, and Tena Kritam, made by him. The Vedas are Proktam, spoken by him, and not Kritam, not made by him. The latter is used only with reference to books dealing with material topics and phenomenal themes. In the Brihadaranya Upanishad, we find that the Vedas are described as breathe out, nishvasitam, by the Supreme Being, Supreme Lord. By this term, it is suggested that to the divine authority, it was as easy, natural, and effortless as breathing is to us. And also that the Veda is the very breath of God or breath of God. I don't know the actual pronunciation, or I learned, I forgot. B-R-E-A-T-H, breath of God. Veda is the very breath of God, in the sense that if there be no Veda, then the concept of God also will end. No breathing, no existence is the inexorable law of life. Vedas are the eternal books of knowledge of the Hindus, and they are compiled and edited in the book form in 4 distinct volumes that I told, that it was segregated, compiled. And each of these Vedas have in them 3 distinct divisions as the mantra, Brahmana, and Upanishad portion. So these divisions are made according to the themes discussed therein. Towards the end of each of the 4 textbooks are appended the Upanishads. They contain the fiery declaration of a realized truth made by masters who have tried to capture the infinite in a web of finite words. These constitute the highest philosophical explanations that the supermen have ever made in the world of creatures. These vital and vibrant truth declarations, actually, compiled and added to the tail end of each Veda textbook, actually, are named also as Vedanta. Yes, Vedanta meaning the end of the Veda. So both metaphorically and literally, it is true. For these represent metaphorically the fulfillment of knowledge, as well as literally constitute the concluding portions of the immortal textbook called the Vedas. As a systematic series of audible sounds which have a mutually understood sense of meaning for the speaker and the hearer, language can be used only in conveying lived experiences which are commonly known to both the parties using the language. In short, language can be used only in the conveyance of finite experiences, which are the common property of all living men in their day-to-day life. At best, a language can hope to express only some of the feelings and can, to an extent all, if at all, bring out thoughts of one's intellectual life in their full intensity. But beyond these, however intimate and best lived may be the experience, the experiencer cannot express those deeper layers of life fully in any language. In fact, the deeper we go into any aspect of life, the more it becomes inexpressible in language. Certainly, the infinite cannot be expressed at all in the language of the finite. And yet, these great rishis have made not an altogether unsuccessful attempt, if not in expressing, at least in conveying the infinite to the intuitive appreciation of such students of literature who have been prepared for living it. The impossible has been thus rendered possible because of the suggestiveness of the word and not because of the literal meaning of the words. Therefore, we find that Upanishads, when read with a mere dictionary understanding of the language, lands us in confusion, non-understanding, and misunderstanding. So in short, the concept of truth is not easy to comprehend nor to express. But the spatial style and technique followed by the sacred Upanishads bring the truth nearer to us. The term Upanishad literally means bringing nearest to us the transcendental and making it exist for us. They make the incomprehensible truth comprehensible. The self which is ever with us, but lost to us in the clouds of our misapprehensions, is unveiled and brought to our subjective experience by these declarations, and so they are called Upanishads. So, as the very word Upanishad indicates, we have to sit near a master at his feet and get ourselves initiated into the sacred mysteries expressed through indications provided by the wizardly language of the scriptures. So we shall be taking a very careful note of all these ideas regarding the style, language, and the theme during our discussion upon the mantras. So, from time immemorial, the way of right living has been a serious question with all thoughtful generations, and era after era, each generation has found a convenient answer for itself to suit the conditions of the circumstances. and temperaments of the people. It is not an exclusive problem. It is not an exclusive problem that is facing us today when we discuss in the press as well as on the platforms whether we are to be secular or spiritual. These words may be new to us. The problem may look like a new weapon forged at the anvil of our times, but the fundamental idea underlying them is eternal and is ever the same. This problem can be solved only when we have found for ourselves an answer to the great question: what is the goal of life and what should be the aim of existence? Is life to be spent in self-denial, renunciation, and soul-seeking? Or is it to be a lifelong, sincere struggle to serve ourselves and those around us for our material needs and physical happiness? Is life to be spent in walking the path of renunciation or in striving on the path of action? Even this is not a new idea at all. Amongst the philosophical literature of India, we find that we had, among our great thinkers, those who had advocated a synthesis of karma and jnana, means actions and knowledge, and they were called the samuchayavadins. Okay, so what is samuchayavadin? A school of thinkers who advocated the yoga of synthesis. So even among these advocates of synthesis, there were three distinct groups. Some emphasizing the need for a synthesis in which importance should be given to karma, means karma pradhana. Others to jnana, jnana pradhana, and still others who glorified a synthesis of equal dose of both action and knowledge. Samapradhan, they are called. So roughly, we may say that during every changing century in the history of man, there was a swing between the two extremes: work and knowledge, secular and divine. One era advocating the quiet growth in the inward life and the attainment of the consequent mental and intellectual culture, and another era emphasizing and advocating endless bloodshed, copious sweat, and fatiguing toil in bringing about more and more material welfare into the domestic, into the social, and into the national life, and thereby raising men and institutions to the peaks of Mammon's own heaven. We as a generation may be said to be living now at almost the fag end of the material swing. The world is getting exhausted and fatigued with its own material exertions, and with tears in its eyes, despair written large on its face, regretting its follies and panting to regain its lost kingdom of peace and quiet growth. Yonder stands and last short waist, bleeding and agonizing, looking up to the east for solace and peace. The great rishis of old, as observers of the life entire, had watched this periodical swing in the attitude of societies and communities, and had tried their best to come to a correct grasp and understanding of the problem in its right perspective. Their immortal solution for this great problem seems to be the theme of the Upanishad that we have in the Upanishad or Íśopanișad. As and when we are dissecting finally the mantras of the Upanishads, discovering for ourselves their beauties of expression and wealth of knowledge. So we shall certainly watch for and detect the final solutions that these great masters have pointed out to us. Theirs is a call, certainly to the path of knowledge, but they do not condemn the path of action. On the other hand, they too emphasize its importance in the scheme of the greater life of renunciation. According to them, we may say that the path of action is to be lived intelligently and with religious zeal so as to complete our biological, mental, and intellectual development. So at the end of it alone can we strive sincerely and hope to walk the path of knowledge and successfully reach the higher peaks of perfection and truth. Thus, the rishis cannot be considered as condemning the path of action as anything contradictory to the path of knowledge, nor are they recommending it as something to be taken together in hand in a spirit of synthesis. On the other hand, they recommended both of them to be followed serially. First, desire motivated actions, followed by the desireless actions, which develop the individual's mental and intellectual potentialities and which makes him fit for the highest vocation in life, called meditation. When an individual reaches the stage of meditation, renunciation comes to him as natural and logical, even as unavoidable. We shall see this theory stage by stage revealed to us as we go through the mantras in all detail. The Íśopanișad or Ishavasya Upanishad is the last chapter of Shukla Yajur Veda, Samhita, and since it is found as an integral part of a definite and known Samhita, this Upanishad is sometimes called the Samhita Upanishad. I told you earlier. The Upanishad declarations, when they are in the material form, they are called as mantras, and versified Upanishads are called Mantropanishads. Ishavasya is one of the most prominent and beautiful, even unparalleled Mantropanishads known to us today. So this Upanishad, means Íśopanișad, had two recensions, Kanva and Madhvandini. The former recensions or Kanva Shaka has the entire 18 mantras as the text stands now. But in the Madhvandini Shaka, the 15th stanza here is the concluding mantra. The face of truth is covered by the disc of gold. O nourisher, O sustainer, unveil this so that I, Satya Dharma, may enjoy the vision. So, Bhattacharya Bhatta, the famous author of glossary on the Shukla Yajurveda, considers the above quoted verse as the concluding mantra of this Upanishad. However, we find that in the Brahma Sutras, Maharshi Vyasadeva refers to both the recensions and gives equal authority to both of them. Very rarely we have even an internal evidence to ascribe definitely many of the Upanishads to a recognizable guru personage, and never have the great rishis dared to sign their Upanishad declarations as their own. Thus, the Upanishads are not generally named after any known master. Often they are known by a symbol with which we may recognize the particular text mentioned in our conversation. The symbol in many cases is often taken from the first word of the first mantra in the Upanishad. Thus, this Upanishad is called Ishavasya Upanishad by borrowing the opening word from the text. Hari Om Tat Sat.